always go up, even for the printing. And it's not because the book is thicker, because it only is €2 different, but the book might be €30 this year instead of 25. If there are people that think that that's too much, you can always say it. Also, this year we will try to work on reservation, because the last year everybody said, oh, I want a book after it was printed. We simply are going to probably send an email around so everyone can say how many copies they want, and then we can order the right amount of copies so we don't lose money that way. And yes, while I'm talking, I will do the preparational talk for the challenge in 3 months, because it's very simple. In 3 months, we have the Landscape Plus challenge. So it's very simple. It's landscape, but a landscape that has people in it or things that are made by human beings. A house, a bicycle, a telephone pole, a signpost, anything. We've had a presentation almost 2 years ago, I think now, by Glenn van der Beek, the Belgian landscape photographer, who explained to us that his clients specifically ask to have people and things in the landscape so it looks natural and it looks fun to go there. So it's very good. It's very easy for everyone. You don't have to go to an exclusive place. You make an inclusive photo. Look, making it look that people are having a good time walking on the beach. And so it's fairly easy. On the website, as usual, you can find in the agenda some photo examples and the link to Glenn's website, specifically the part that is called Mens en Natuur, which means human and nature, where you find the photos of people walking, biking. And for the people who have missed the presentation, I will simply repeat 2 of the tips he gave. One tip he gave was, because his idea was to people in Belgium say Belgium is ugly. But he said, no, Belgium can be pretty if you photograph it the right way. So that's what you have to do. Anywhere you go, there are pretty things to see. But instead of using a wide angle, because if you use a wide angle in Belgium, there's always houses, people, cars, telephone poles, pylons on it. So he goes out with a long lens and he focuses on something that's very nice. And he uses the shallow depth of field to make the foreground a little bit blurry. He focuses on the tree or anything from nature that's interesting, and the horizon softly fades out. So that makes it very interesting. So anyone can do it. It's the second tip he gave, which is very important, is if you put your camera settings right. In this case, that means your white balance. When you're out on a sunny day, you put it on daylight. When you're in the woods, you put it on shade, or when it's cloudy, you put it on cloudy. Then he doesn't have to correct anything, only the saturation down a little bit. And that's in Belgium. So maybe if you do it here, you have to put your saturation down a little bit more. I don't know. But so that's the tip. Anyone can do it. If you want to use the things that the landscape photographers like to use, neutral density filter, long exposure, then I think, unless you work with the model that sits still, and I have seen photos of that, and that looks very spectacular, try to avoid people because they will be moving. But you can still use that technique with an interesting phone booth or anything. So make nice, lovely, good, funny pictures. Thank you. And now I give the word back to Emilio, and he will go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Oh, I'm going to try to send the link through to Marlene because she hasn't. Can you send the link to Marlene for the Zoom meeting, please? Because I can't find it on my phone anymore.
Just a moment.
Might have deleted.
Okay, done. Okay, Rob, Can you try to share the screen, please?
Am I doing?
Open your first peek there.
Can you see that? No,
No,
no.
go to the bottom of the screen. There is now, yes.
Yes.
Open the folder.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Yes. Right. You see that?
yeah.
Okay.
Open the first one, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, ready.
Good to
Go ahead.
go. Yes, everybody see it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Right. Well, hello everybody. Greetings from England, where our saturnine summer continues, putting me in the right mood for these images. We have, I think, some interesting images, some very strong images, some not so strong, some that suggest we have amongst us people who are living happy, carefree lives, which doesn't make me at all jealous, of course. So we're going to have to start off with this first one. And I think this is a reasonably good attempt. Or what I should have said is that I've rearranged the sets into a random order, and within each set I've put what I think is the strongest image as the last one that you'll see in the set. And I've looked at both the theme and the photographic merit when deciding which ones to choose. And I think this one works reasonably well, as I was saying. I think the photographer here has used a fairly good device of a frame within a frame with this structure behind the people, almost leading us from left to right down to where the people are. The fact that they're in semi-silhouette, I think, adds a touch of mystery. I like very much that they're about to disappear out of the frame. I think that creates a dynamic tension because we don't know where they're going. We don't know what's happening out of there. So I think that works better than having space for them to walk into. What I find though is that it doesn't quite fit the mood and the sort of advice that was on the club's website about saturnine, dark, moody, expressing fears, expressing emotion. And I don't get very much of that. In fact, I don't really get any of that out of this particular one. I think we get a bit of mystery, which can be part of Saturnine because of the two people, but I think we can see far too much detail of what's in the rest of the image, and far too much I think brightness in there. So I felt that this one was not quite fitting the theme of the challenge. This one as well, I must admit, and this is going to perhaps sound a bit harsh, but I must admit to having been disappointed with this one. But then again, I know who the photographer is, and I know that they're capable of very, very strong work, as we will see shortly. This one has some aspects that I like. I like the way the water surface has been used to break up the reflection and create an almost impressionistic effect. I like the leaves floating on the water and appearing in the darker bit of sky to add a bit of interest there. And what I do absolutely love, I think, is the duck just on the right towards the bottom right-hand corner there, which I think adds a surreal touch to it. It's almost as though we've got the duck swimming in the sky rather than on the water. But because the photographer's trying to show us that this is the reflection as the main picture, then I think with the duck and the reflection itself, it just adds that little twist to it, which, as I say, I think makes it a little bit surreal in that corner. But I'm not really getting the dark, gloomy, expression of fears, tapping into our emotions, that I think we're looking for with the theme of the challenge. This one, however, I do think is there, and for a long time when I was looking at these, I was thinking this was going to be my favorite image of this set. I think it's a very powerful image. I like this high contrast. I think that for me that can be part of the saturnine feeling, that can add to the mood, can add to the almost threatening situation, which I think we have to a certain extent here. I love that half face in the top right hand corner, which is mysterious, which could be threatening because it's right above everything else in the picture space, and almost looks as though it's blowing smoke into the image, into the rest of the scene to add that atmosphere. And we got, again, I think, a bit of dynamic tension because we've got that face, the main person heading one way, and in the background on the left we've got somebody heading in the opposite direction. So our eyes taken in opposite directions at the same time, which creates that tension. There's a lot of grain. I still like to call it grain, or perhaps I should be saying noise in this image, which I'm sure the photographer has left there deliberately. And I feel that's the right thing to do. I like it. I think it adds greatly to the atmosphere of the image. The reason that I, in the end, decided not to choose this as the best of the set was because of the central figure. And he looks to me as though he's far too relaxed. He looks quite relaxed. He looks as though he's lost in his own thoughts. And I think because of that, it works against this idea of expressing fears. It could tap into expressing emotions because happiness, calmness can be emotions as well, but I don't think they're the sort of emotions that Saturnine is really tapping into. And here I think that just takes us away from the theme slightly, whereas the final image, this one I felt was very strong indeed, and it poses all sorts of questions. It can suggest all sorts of stories to the viewer. Who are these people? Where are they going? What's going on? It's all dark, it's all moody. I feel as though I'm being taken into the middle of a bad dream where there are unknown people moving about. I don't know what they're doing, I don't know where they're going. And again, we've got that dynamic tension with one person coming towards us, but that person either is fading into the background or is coming out of the background. They look as though they're concentrating on the phone. Why? Does that mean that they're at ease in the situation, that they have no worries because they're concentrating on the phone? Or are they calling somebody for help? Are they trying to find a map to get their way out of this place? So again, as I say, I think it sets up lots of stories. I think it taps into the dark, moody, mysterious expression of fears and emotions that I think the theme is all about. So I think that's a really powerful picture in terms of the theme, and it's probably one of the stronger ones that we're going to see today as well. And many of you will not be surprised to learn that all those photos belong to Rachel, who unfortunately I saw couldn't be with us today. So I hope she's picking this up on the recording. And this one, this is these are all arranged randomly, I promise you. But this one provides a nice contrast to what we've just seen, I think, because we're here. You can see this is nice and clean. There's plenty of detail. It's nicely composed. It's well exposed. It's a night shot, and yet we can see, as I say, lots and lots of detail in there. But I think that is a thing that's working against it in terms of Saturnine, because if we're looking for dark, moody, something that's mysterious, then I'm sorry to say we don't have it in this image, because we can see everything, we can see what it is, and we know what it is. So I think we need something that goes to be darker than this to give more mood and more atmosphere. This one, I think, is moving towards it because we've got this blur around the edges. And I think that works quite nicely. Well, what it does, of course, is concentrate our attention in the middle there on the people. And there's a little bit of mystery there because they look as though they're talking to somebody there on the steps, but we don't know what's going on. We don't know who they are. We don't know what sort of thing is taking place. And we could make up a story about that, about what they're doing and why they're doing it. Again, though, I feel that it's just missing that bit that is an expression of fears, of that tapping into emotions and making us feel a bit unsettled and a bit uneasy. So again, I think we need a bit more of a darker, gloomier type of image that is much more moody and much more mysterious than we've even got in this one. This one I think has got a lot of potential to fit the theme because these hands, I can imagine these hands, disembodied hands coming out of the dark, coming towards us as though we are in the middle of a nightmare. And these giant hands are coming to us, coming at us for whatever reason. I think we would need to remove the glass candle holder on the right hand side because I think that just interferes with our viewing of the hands as well. And I don't know if anybody else sees it, but I think then the left hand as we're looking at it, just above the finger, there's a shape that looks like an eye. So I just get the feeling that this is some sort of strange creature that our nightmares might have conjured up, that's got an eye just at the end, just above the fingers of the hand. And as I say, these hands coming towards us to not necessarily do very nice things to us. So I think potential there, but needs working on. This one I did like very much indeed, and that's I surprised myself with that because I don't usually like these colour spot images where you've got a black and white image with a bit of colour kept in it. But I think it works on this one because it starts to give us this nightmarish feeling because we've got that colour of the sky, but everything else is just the black and white tones that we can see there. And again, I think we've got a story. This person sitting alone, why they're sitting alone, are they waiting for something? Is that person meant to represent ourselves and that we're alone in this nightmarish, almost sort of nuclear type situation and just facing the future alone? It should be, by the looks of it, quite an attractive location, but I get the feeling that it doesn't feel like that to this person in this situation. So I thought that worked really well in terms of tapping into fears and emotions, creating a bit of mood. And they belong to Pedro. So well done, Pedro, on that last one. This one, I like this in many ways because I like the tonality of it. I like the textures on it, and I think they're very strong. I like dark shadows, but I'd also like to have seen a hint, just a hint of something in the shadows there. I'm not sure that we need this dark shadow on the left-hand side of the image as we're looking for it. That might be usefully cropped off because I think the other shadow around the way the cloth falls around this other shadow towards the top right, I think is a very strong space within the frame. And that's the area where I'm thinking I'd just like to have seen a hint of something a bit nightmarish. We'll see in other images to come. It could be the face of an animal. It could have been those hands of Pedro's. Could be something like that coming out of there, something to unsettle us and to suggest that what lies beyond and what lies within this fabric is something that we don't want to have to deal with, but is still there nonetheless. This one, again, I like, well, I like the bottom 2/3 of this image. I think the lighting is very strong down there. I like all that light and shade. The heavy shadows, I think, fits with the mood of Saturnine. It's a good way to go. I'm not sure, well, I'm not sure. I am quite sure, actually, that we don't need the sky area in this image. The image works better without it. And again, perhaps then just have a hint of something in the shadows. There does look to be a hint of something in the shadows down there, just at the bottom of the middle part of the photo. We can see a canopy, and it looks as though it's a seating and some tables, perhaps outside a bar or a restaurant. But I think we need something that's a bit more frightening than that. That again is the stuff of nightmares in there, to just suggest Saturnine, to provoke our darker thoughts, to suggest to us it might be something that we're fearful of. This one as well, again, I like very much for the theme, this stark contrast from the whites to the blacks. I like the fact that there's really deep shadows, but again, I would wish for something that taps into the emotions, that makes us think that it's something that we're fearful of, to express those fears. And it might again be the sort of things that I've already talked about in terms of some sort of creature, some sort of person in the shadows, or it could be perhaps a black cat sitting on the counter, and whatever black cats conjure up in our minds and in our nightmares as well. So it's got lots of strong points, but it's like the others. I feel that it's not quite finished off in terms of the theme. This one I like very much indeed, and I think this suits the theme very nicely. I can imagine this in our dreams. This person is a representation of ourselves, or it might be a representation of a loved one, or it could even be a representation of a place somewhere we want to be, but we're barred. We can't get to it. We can't get to that person, or we can't get through that barrier to come away from the darker place and into the light. Whatever it is, the barriers there, the gates across there, are preventing us from being where we want to be, preventing us getting to know this person. And we've got the mystery of who this person is, where they're going, what they're doing, what their business is. And I felt that one fitted the theme very well indeed. And they're from Alfred, which I think, Alfred, if I remember rightly, the theme was your idea, so I think you've chosen well. Okay, this one again, I think has got the makings of being a Saturnine image, but isn't quite working as well as it could do. I'm not keen at all on the very light areas in the foreground, and I think you can quite easily crop those off, because to me the image is all about this leading line along the steps and into the tunnel and through the rocks, and presumably some sort of cave taking us deeper in there, which I think, had this image been darker, had it been a bit more gloomy, a bit more moody, and had we again had the suggestion of something unsettling in there, then it would have tapped into our emotions and our fears in a way that might have suggested that we're hemmed in this small space, that we can't get away from whatever it is. So I think it's a good location, but it needs that extra work to turn it into a strong image that meets the theme. This one, I think, again, there's bits I like. I particularly like the silhouette of the person on the boat there in front of the sun. I'm not sure that very much of the rest of the scene, to be quite honest, is all that relevant. I find that the sky is perhaps a bit too pretty for the theme. I'm not sure that we need this fishing boat on the right-hand side. In fact, to me, all the action, my eye keeps coming back to the highest point of contrast, which is the silhouette of the person against the sun. And I think that's the part of the image that attracts the eye and is the strongest bit. How it's fitting into Saturnine, I'm not quite sure. We've got a bit of darkness, we've got a bit of mood coming in there, but I don't think again that it's one that's really prompting fears, prompting darker thoughts, being mysterious. I don't think there's perhaps much mystery going on in this image because we can, even though it's all silhouette, I think we can see quite easily what's happening around here. This one, again, it's like many others that we're going to see today. I think it's got a lot of potential. I think there's a story here of what looks like a little child, or looks to me like a little child anyway, on their own. Are they lost? Are they looking for someone? There's other adult people across to the right-hand side, but there's quite a gap between them, and they're separated not just in the space and the distance, but the pillars and the arches, I think, provide a barrier between the two, so they can't come together. There seems to be on the left-hand side another person further down through the arches, towards the background of the picture. So is there a connection there? Is the child trying to catch up with them? Is there any relationship between them? So I think there's all those sorts of things that are coming in that can tap into our emotions and fears, but we haven't, for me, got the darkness and the gloominess about it, or the quite the mood, I don't think is quite right on this one. And I think that's because we can see in various places quite a bit of detail, and I would suggest that detail is not what we want when we're looking at dark, moody, gloomy, mysterious images. Well, this one, I think I picked this one out as the strongest one of the set. And it's for one simple reason. I think the photographer has seen something here and has produced it to us that does add a touch of mystery. It does tell a story. It does, I think, to a certain extent, tap into fears and emotions, and makes us a bit unsettled and uneasy. And in a way, it's almost an image of two halves because of the pillars down the middle separating out the object, the statuette, on the left and the shadow on the right. But what I keep coming back to is the shadow. And I think that's, for me, that's the part of the image that meets the theme, because we've got a suggestion of something, and we've got that hair, snake-like hair coming off there. So this is a mysterious image. This is a mysterious spirit that could be quite fearful, that can tap into our nightmares or be produced in our nightmares. When we see the real object, then we can see much more detail, and we feel, I think, more at ease with the real object than we do with the shadow on the wall. And that's off Strictly Arno. His name I have probably pronounced very badly, for which I apologize. Okay, yeah, I can see this one heading towards Saturnine. And it took me, I'm probably still wondering why it doesn't quite work, because we look as though we're entangled somewhere that we can't see a way out of. And yet at the same time, we get a feeling that it's not necessarily a bad place to be. And I think that might be because the reflections look very nice. And maybe, like we saw with one of the early ones, they just need breaking up a bit. We just need something in there that will break them up a bit so that they're not as comfortable and as attractive as they seem to be down there. The top half of the picture doesn't look as comfortable, as attractive, because, as I say, it looks like we're tangled up, and in the middle there, But again, I'm not sure that I'm getting the sense of fear that I've got out of some of the stronger images that are with us today. And I could make similar comments on this one. I can see there's a sense of mood. I don't know what's happened here. There's whether this is just a small part of a much larger picture that's been cropped and then magnified, but there's something that looks as though something's happened to it. Looks like maybe a bit of grunge or something, or maybe it's just the way all the pixels are working. But I quite like the effect of that in terms of saturnine, because it's taken away that detail. But having done that and having got a bit of mist, there's nothing in there that's suggesting something that makes us uneasy. I can imagine this was probably a nice, pleasant landscape at the time that you took it, but I don't want to be feeling pleasant. I want to be feeling uneasy. I want to be feeling on edge, and I want something in there. And I think we need something in there that's going to suggest that this is not really a pleasant place to be. And I'm not sure on this one we need all of that sky. Maybe, but I think we need darker, much darker images to meet the theme and to set the mood for the sense of unease and the darker thoughts that the theme is about. Well, this one is one that I was very unsure about, to be honest with you, and I don't know, because I don't know the photographer, and I don't know whether this is a piece of artwork that the photographer has made or whether it's somebody else's artwork that they've come across. It looks from other aspects, and particularly on the right-hand side, that this might be on display in an exhibition somewhere, and we seem to have some sort of part of a person's arm on the right and some sort of display cabinet or whatever above that, and catching the light and taking the eye across to that right hand side of the image. So I can see why you would do it, because the artwork itself, the sculpture itself, would suggest saturnine. And if it's your sculpture that you photographed, then I'm going to say, well done for that. But to me, the suggestion of the theme and the bit that's meeting the theme is the sculpture rather than the photograph. And if it's somebody else's artwork, then I think you need to take that and add to it so that the photograph becomes yours and not just a representation of somebody else's work. Whereas this one, I think this does meet the theme, despite the fact that we've again got this fairly white sky. We've got that strong contrast that we've seen in other images, which I think works well. The rim lighting around this person gives us a little bit of information in terms of the shape. We can see that they're walking towards the light. What have they left behind? Are they coming out of the gloom and going towards the light? Is that what we're doing? Are we in a bad dream again, where we want to get away from something and move out of the dark into the light? There are branches across the exit that the person is heading towards. Are they going to stop that person getting there? Are they going to interfere? So again, we've got a story coming out of this one, and we've got this starkness of contrast and this loss of detail that makes us focus on just the message rather than, I think, everything else that's in the image. So I thought that was another strong one. And that's Ellen. So well done, Ellen. Okay. Right, this one is, to me, quite honestly, I hate to say this because I know the photographer is a very good photographer, but this one to me is just a poor monochrome conversion of a very pretty scene. I'd like to have seen with this one, for this theme, that sky darkened down very much to become moody and stormy. The same with the background hills, more contrast in there, perhaps just bits of light picking up. But it's, I think, on the whole, a pleasant scene, and it's going to be difficult in terms of Saturnine to turn this pleasant scene into something dark and moody and fearful and mysterious. It would need a lot of work, and it would probably need actually much more different lighting and weather conditions to be able to do that. This one again looks like a very nice place to be. And I can imagine again that in colour that we've got a much better sky, and we've got shafts of light coming down in the background, and we've got a nice bit of colour with the sun and so on, and it looks calm and it looks peaceful, and just going on what was put on the club's website. That's not what Saturnine is about. It's not about being calm and peaceful. It's probably about being the opposite of calm and peaceful. So again, as with the last one, I think it's a nice photograph. It's a pleasant photograph, but it's not really meeting the theme, and I think it needs quite a bit of work to turn it into a Saturnine type image. This one as well, I think it's got the makings. Some eye-catching. The person's umbrella is very eye-catching, I think, because of the shapes and the contrast down there. In some ways, I can see the shape of the umbrella resonating with the round shapes on the hand railing. As we go down, we've got a lovely leading line. It photographically works very well by taking our eye right down those steps to that person. We've got some interesting textures and brickwork on either side of it, and using those walls as a frame within the frame. But again, what's missing for me is that feeling of dark mood, expression of fears, expression of darker thoughts, that mystery, that gloominess that Saturnine is all about. And again, I think it's, as with the others, something that needs some work on to turn it into a Saturnine image. This one I felt was the one with the most potential. And when I saw this, and I thought, well, if we darken the sky down, then we start to turn this into a very different image with a very different message. And the phrase that came to mind was Shakespeare's phrase, "Now is the winter of our discontent." And I think that is, I would suggest, the sort of message that we want to be putting across with this image. So let's turn it again from an attractive winter scene into a dark, moody, not very pleasant winter scene. I think the chances of doing it with this image are stronger than the chances of doing it with the other three images. So that's why I've picked this one of the four as being the best of this set. And they're from Janet, and we know Janet's a very good photographer, and I'm sure we'll can produce, well, I know I've seen Janet produce much stronger images than those four. This one is, well, again, similar comments, really. I think there's a little bit more in this, more moodiness in the sky of this one. I quite like the fact that we've got the tops of things on the foreground there, the tops of the buildings and the poles and the trees and so on, which suggests that over this horizon there's a dip down, and this all these pebbles, they remind me of Portland Bill down in Dorset, or maybe Dungeness in Kent. Wide open spaces, and I can imagine this sky dark and gloomy, very stormy, across a wide open space, where you're using the weather conditions to provoke our fears, to provoke our emotions. At the moment, as with Janet's pictures, this one just feels a bit too pleasant for Saturnine. And this one as well has got a lot working for it. There's almost in some ways classic photograph for competition, because we've got some foreground interest with the puddle and the reflections in the puddle, picking up colours, picking up light. We've got some texture on the streets. We've got the leading line taking us through into the background. We've got some repetition of shapes causing a bit of a pattern going on there with the plant pots, the windows, the shapes down there. We've got the starburst on the light. So all of these things tend to work very well in photographs and tend to go down well with judges. For me, though, again, with this theme of Saturnine, I can't see it as anything other than this is a pleasant place. And when I've taken this photograph, I'm going to go into that pub. I'm going to go and have a drink, have a pint of beer in that pub, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I don't want to be feeling like that. I want to be feeling this is not a place I want to be. I want you to be telling me this is a place that we shouldn't be going to. It's dark. It's got hidden fears. It's mysterious, but it's not. It's nice. It's pleasant. I want to go there. You make me want to go there instead of make me wanting to run away from it. And I think that's what we need to be doing with Saturnine. Let's find something that makes us want to run away. This one as well. I'm guessing somebody was up early, catching the dawn. There's this interesting coolness of colours in the air, but very warm glow of the lights as well. Again, we've got the leading line, we've got foreground interest, we've got repetition of shapes, we've got these things. I would think they work well, but again, it's a place that you're really selling to me. Yeah, I'd like to go there. I'd like to see this. I wouldn't mind spending the night there and maybe getting up early and going and doing a bit of photography around the water. So we've got a bit of morning mist, getting something very pleasant. But you might, as I said with the last one, you make me want to be there instead of making me want to run away from it. So again, I think it's struggling to fit the theme. Whereas this one, in some ways, I could make the same comments that you're making me want to be there. I've seen, to be honest with you, I've seen lots of photographs of this place. It's a place in Northern Ireland, dark hedges, and it was made famous by Game of Thrones, and many photographs since then. I've rarely seen one in black and white, so I quite like to see it like in the way that you've done it. But the ones I've seen do tend to have a darker feel to them, to try and emphasize the dark hedges bit of it. Here again, I think we've got a pleasant representation of it, but as with the last one of Janet's, the same with this one, that I can see with this that the potential is there to work on this and turn it into something dark and moody and something that we should fear and be concerned about and be uneasy about being there. Clearly, the couple in this picture are not at all uneasy about being there. They're standing in the middle of the road. Whether they're taking photographs, what they're doing, I'm not too sure, but they're standing in the middle of the road and just round a bend. And at any moment, I suppose a car could come around them. Maybe that's the bit that we need to be fearful of. Maybe that's the bit that you're seeing as tapping into our emotions. But I think the whole in the way it's presented is, again, you're saying to us, well, look, isn't this a pleasant place to be? And yes, it is. I'm sure it is. I'd like to go. But for Saturnine, I'd like to run away with it. And that's Dave Hornsey, and it is quite random. I've done these quite randomly, so I didn't actually arrange for Janet and Dave's photographs to come up one after the other. But I can only say that to the pair of you that you must be living a very happy, carefree life. And no, I'm not jealous, but good luck to you both. Okay, and now I think this is getting more towards Saturnine with a straight picture. and I get the impression that there's not been very much work, if any, done on this one. And I think you could just give it a bit of a boost, but I can see why you've taken it. What's saturnine about this is this industrial complex, which doesn't look at all attractive, which does perhaps prompt fears amongst us. It does perhaps make us uneasy. I'm not sure we've quite got the mystery in there, but we've certainly got something that is not very pleasant at all. So yeah, I think it's working well in that respect. This one as well, I think this is a really, really good idea. I think it can be improved though, to be honest with you, because I think you've made the animal's face too obvious and too big, and what perhaps a bit too light as well. So what I'd suggest to you is we need a bit more of this misty, foggy feeling over the animal. It needs to be a little bit more subtle. I think it needs to be a bit smaller and a little bit darker. And by doing that, I would suggest that we will then give an impression of a bigger distance between the person and the animal, which I think will give a message that this is what's in the future. This is what's waiting for us a bit further down the road. Whereas here, I think because they're so close together, and because the animal's head is so bright, we get the feeling more that it's an attempt at a composite image rather than an attempt at creating a mood and suggesting something fearful, and something that's going to make us think we should be turning around and getting out of this situation. This one I think is superb, absolutely tremendous. Maybe because you've picked the right time for me to be doing this, because we've been watching a few TV series that have featured shallow graves and bits of hands sticking out of the earth, but that's the impression I get. Something buried in a shallow grave. Is it a zombie? Is it the Walking Dead? Is it somebody that was buried alive? What's gone on? It's something really, really unpleasant. It's something that I don't want to have to think about, but you're forcing me to think about it. And those deep shadows, what are the deep shadows there to suggest that there's something deeper and darker in there as well, I think. So although it's essentially, I think, a very simple photograph, I also think it's a very strong one, that works very well in meeting the theme, and could have been the best one of the set, except for this one, which I find a much more complex image. The last one I think was quite simple, and that's not a criticism. I like simple images. This one I find very complex, and we've got this dark shadow, but that's not got any regular shape to it. It's all over the place. Some of the highlights are a little bit over the top, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me, because that's part of this nightmare, this bad dream that we're having. We've got, in some ways, something that looks like it might have come out of an Escher drawing, with these steps that lead up to nowhere. Oh, we've got this curve arc of the window, if it is a window, that's then interfered by a bit more of it that seems to be coming in from a completely different angle. We've got this almost Picasso-like eye and graphic shapes through there, but in the background, as you can see, there's a face. And this is what I was talking about with the animal head, but because that face is much lighter and much smaller, we get a feeling of much greater depth through that window. It's not like one is sitting on top of the other. There is a great depth. There's a journey to be made from the eye down to that face. And I just think this is absolutely wonderful. This is such a strong image that I think just meets the theme in every respect, and that is Gene. So well done, Gene. That's a cracking image. Well done. Okay. Some images here again where I think the person is doing very well, using, I guess, multiple exposure. We got a light trail that you can see in here. Now, what's the light trail doing? Well, maybe this is just some sort of random thing. Maybe that's like a ribbon that's attached to this person. Maybe that's signaling that's the way out, or maybe it's a ghostly spirit that's come flying in. We can see with the person is he fading into the background, or is he coming out of the background? We don't know, but there's something happening there to unsettle us. So again, we're getting this sort of bad dream, I think, effect out of this. We got this abandoned place that just seems to be in the middle of nowhere, and there's a random light in the sky. Is that another ghostly spirit that's on the move? So all those sorts of things, I think, are working well. I felt, though, that this one worked a bit better because the person, this ghostly spirit, is into the building as well. So this person is coming out of or going into all of that scene back there. And my only concern with this one, to be honest with you, was the arrangement of the arms and the hands, where it suggests to me the person is surrendering or say waving, saying hello to us. Whereas what I think might have been stronger was those arms outstretched and the hands arranged as though they were reaching for our throat to do us harm. So I think there's good ideas here, both of which could have been a little bit stronger. This one I felt didn't work so well. Again, we've got that light trail, so similar effects there. And this person that's got a hole where the heart should be, a bright shining hole where the heart should be. So I can see that working. I'm not so keen on the background in this one because it looks a little too literal to me. It reminds me very much of the holiday complexes around the lagoon opposite Consume Supermarket and Berra Player. So I'm getting a literal feeling to that, whereas I wasn't getting that before with the other ones. But this one I felt was the strongest one because of the nightmarish quality of the colours. We've still got a representation of a ghostly figure in there, not quite as strong as it was in the earlier photographs, maybe could be a bit stronger. And I think the foreground on this one could usefully be cropped off. But I keep coming back to, although we've got plenty of information in terms of the trees, it's the colour and the overall mood and the fact that we have got a ghostly presence in there that I thought was taking it well into saturnine territory and making this the strongest one of the set. And that one is by Jose. Okay, we're about halfway through. Do you want to carry on or do you want to break?
Okay. Take a break. We can take a break now. Rob?
Yeah, I'm happy to have a break if you want one.
Okay. How long?
10 minutes. Well, I don't know. Do you want to go get a coffee?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Good.
Han perdido los comentarios. Han perdido.
Bueno, solamente como lo que dice es que el motivo del challenge es crear fotografías desnudas, intrigantes, misteriosas, que te desagrade el aspecto, ¿no? Que no te guste estar ahí. Pero muchas de ellas pues dice que no son realmente las fotos, pero de no se buscan o Sorry. Okay, are you ready, Rob?
Okay, yes, I'm ready. Everybody ready?
Okay.
Okay, right. So we'll
you.
move on. And
Wait.
here we have an image that I'm pretty certain has been worked on in Photoshop. Not that that's a criticism, because I think it's a fantastic program that is capable of great things in the right hands. I've tried a few of these ideas myself, where you copy one image and flip it and put the two together. And what I've tended to find out, and what I think has also happened with this one, is that the really interesting bits of it become where the two images join, because you start to get bits that are neither image, or bits not in the original image. So we get, if we look down the middle from the top, we get something that looks to me like a vaulted ceiling in a cathedral, and then coming down, I can see that there's something like a hand or octopus tentacles coming out, and so we go on down somebody's head, and these sorts of things further down, something that seems to have either a corridor or rays of light from underneath it. So those are the sort of things that I enjoy seeing in these types of images. This one I think fits with the theme quite well. The dark clouds and the moodiness of the whole image add to that. This repetition of shapes that the photographer's created from the head of the statue, I think, as well, is the stuff of bad dreams, and is saying something about playing into our fears and the people that we are, the people that we might become, and so on. So I think this is a strong image that works very well, and it's full of lots of interest, and it's one I could look at for quite a while and keep seeing different bits in there. So it's good. I like it. This one I thought was going to be what I thought would, for me, would have been the best image of this set of four, because I like very much the message that it's conveying, which is probably quite simple and straightforward and obvious to all of us. And I like the way that the photographers put it together, because there's bits and pieces on this foreground figure which are difficult when it comes to cutting it out and pasting it against another background. And I think it's been done to a very good standard. I decided against it in the end because there are a couple of reasons photographically that I felt it could be stronger. One is that the background I felt would be better with a completely dead tree, And I remember years ago going to somewhere near Mini Hollywood, and there was a place on the side of the road there that had got several dead trees. And the other thing I felt was the arrangement of the lighting. Now, it could well be that the photographer's chosen deliberately to have the light in two different places, because again, we're not necessarily looking for reality, and we're not necessarily looking for things to smoothly join together. But I felt it was such outstanding that there's so much bright light which we can see from the shadows is coming from the right hand side as we look at it, whereas in the background image the light is in the background. And I think if you're going to do that, then you've got to make it much more obvious that this is something that you're moving away from reality with. Whereas I think the message in the image is a really, really important one for us all to take away. So it's good. I like the gas mask, and I think if that's yours and the hat, then you can have some fun playing around with that in all sorts of different locations. This one again, I thought was I want to make the viewer stop and think, and what's the image about? I did for a start think, well, maybe the younger looking.
Sorry, Rob, can you hear me?
Yes,
You are frozen,
I'm frozen.
or we are frozen.
I can hear you.
Moving on mine, Emilio. Not see the screen at all.
Yeah, sorry, we have problems with the internet connection.
Oh, right, okay.
It's okay now again.
Right.
We couldn't hear the last words.
You didn't hear the last one? The one with the gas mask?
Not all, just the last words about this.
Okay, right, yeah. But I was saying that I think if you're going to use images where the lighting is coming from different directions, then maybe you need to make that much more obvious that this is something that's done deliberately to create an effect and not take us away even further from reality than you have done here. But I also I like the fact that this gas mask, I think, and the hat are very photogenic, and I think can be used in a number of different photos. Okay, we moved on. Is that okay? Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I think, as I was saying, I think this one is another image where the photographer is prompting the viewer to give thought to what's happening here. I wondered about this one as to whether the statue should be the other way around, whether the younger looking face in the background should be in the foreground and perhaps old Father Time or the old man should be in the background, because that's sort of what's in front of us. But I think it can be read this way, that this is a reflection by the older person on the younger one, and perhaps what we used to be, what happened, what we were like, and how our lives became entangled and went off in different directions, and that as we went through life, we didn't just grow up, but we grew out as well. And but I'm not so sure with this one that the feeling of fear comes through quite as strongly as it has done with others, and it's just slightly missing, I felt, on that respect, the saturnine theme. But this one, I just I'm in some ways I'm at a loss to know what to say. And this to me is the stuff of nightmares. It looks like something's been dug up out of the ground. It looks as though it's been wet, it's been dry, caked with dried mud, it's been split open by something. There's something inside there that we don't know what it is. Is it coming out to us? Is that where we're going to disappear in there? it's something that's dried out, it's old, but inside maybe there's something that's still young and vibrant. Is it some sort of alien being that's come down to Earth? I think there are some of these that prompted me to think about the War of the Worlds. And is this something that's invading us, or is it something that is going to take us into it and take us away somewhere? So again, I think lots of stories, lots of questions that it's prompting. Photographically, I like the colours, I like the textures. I might suggest putting this on a diagonal. Would that work better? Does that matter? I'm not too sure it does, to be quite honest with you. It's another one that I think is a strong image because it feeds into bad dreams, into nightmares, into fears about what's happening, darker thoughts that we need to see with saturnine images. And you'll probably not be surprised to know that's work by Frank. Okay, right, this one I think, like others that I've spoken about, has got some merits, but I think can be stronger in terms of the theme that we're exploring today. I quite like the crucifix at the front. I'd like to have seen some way, if possible, to separate that a bit more from the building. Maybe put some emphasis on that because of the symbolism that it provokes amongst those of us in the Christian world. I quite like the arch around the doorway, but I'd like to have seen that sort of darker and a bit more mysterious, so that we're going to go through this portal, but we don't know what's inside. We don't know what's awaiting us. I'm not so sure about the person in the foreground. He looks as though he's just biding his time, waiting for something to happen. And maybe just needs something to be coming out of that door to grab him, or something coming somewhere to upset him and stop him being as much at ease as he is at the moment. This one I think has got the beginnings of the mood. I can see why we did this. We've got this lovely line around walking into the light. So the reality of it is that it looks quite a nice place to be, to spend a bit of time. I'm just wondering whether this branch we're supposed to see in the bit that's highest part of the branch there, a serpent's head, maybe something there like that there coming out of it, to make us feel uneasy, or whether it's the weather conditions we're relying on with this sort of misty effect to just take us away from the reality and into something a bit more mysterious. I'm wondering with this one, would it be like if the point of view had been from the end of the branch looking out to sea, whether that would have said something, because we'd have had a line taking us into the sea, and whether that was a perilous place to be in these sorts of weather conditions. So I think it's one where you need to walk around and think about what's going to give you the best, have a good idea in your mind, clear idea in your mind about what it is that you want to say with the image. But this one's on its way, but I don't think is quite there, to be honest. This one I was going to choose as the best, and I saw this person in here as being the representation of ourselves, and sort of a little bit lost, a little bit lonely, on their own. But you know, we got this almost again sort of nuclear bomb type of lighting in there, with this big glow in the sky and that reflection of the light across the water. And then I thought, well, I don't know, is the photographer here trying to say some sort of message about us being between a rock and a hard place? We've got the foreground rocks and we've got the post, but I couldn't quite work out, is the post supposed to be the hard place? And I decided in the end maybe that wasn't quite the message either. I like again this sort of dynamic tension where the figure is moving out of the picture space, but we've got that post there very close to them, so the room to move is a little bit limited. So maybe there's something there about being trapped between this bright light and this post, but I'm not sure the post is strong enough really to give an impression of the person being trapped. So in the end, well, it's nearly there. It's nearly there, but it didn't quite make it. Whereas this one, I thought made it in very subtle ways, and I only had one real concern about this one, to be honest with you, in terms of Saturnine, which was the menu on the table. And I felt it was a shame that was there because it brings in that touch of reality. I'm not sure we need anything beneath the tabletop in the image, but that's neither here nor there really. And again, I felt that yes, we could make it a little bit dark, a little bit moody, but it's the person's pose and expression that for me was taking it into the Saturnine area and what their thoughts are. So I think we just then need to create the lighting and the atmosphere around that to suggest dark, troubled, fearful thoughts and create a bit of mystery. And that's for me the restaurant menu takes away that sort of mystery. But it's a nice image to work on. And they're from Ashton. This one as well, I felt was similar to the last picture in some ways, in terms of here's somebody on their own and they're in almost a dream, like they're lost in their own thoughts. And what I quite liked about this one is that there isn't really anything sharp. And yes, she does appear lost in her thoughts. And although we can see her quite clearly through the window, we've got a dirty window and there's nothing sharp, there's nothing detailed through the window. It's just a grey, nondescript world out there. And is this again, she on a journey? Is this what she's getting away from? Is this her future that's awaiting her through the window? So I felt there was a good message there as far as that was concerned. This one I felt, I'm sorry to say, was a little bit too detailed, a little bit too clean, a little bit too sharp. I like the fact that we've got this line and these patches of light and shade, both top and bottom, that take the eye through the picture. We've got nice, interesting foreground, midground, and background details in there that I think help the picture space. But it might be the place I've been in myself. At Mohaka, it might not, but it's these sort of places you can play with the light, I think, and you can get some dark and gloomy pictures and you can get some suggestions of things rather than actually showing us. And I think the theme is about suggesting things. It's about creating something that's dark and moody and suggesting fears, suggesting mystery, suggesting unease. And whilst I think this is a good location for doing that, I don't think it's really happened in this image, I'm afraid. But this one, I do now. I don't know what the structure is. It reminds me very much of a war memorial in the village where I grew up, and which was put up in memory to people, local people who died in both the First and Second World Wars. So that came to mind, and what also then prompted me to think more about it were these stalks in the field that I saw as sort of the remnants of a battleground, or suggesting the gravestones in war cemeteries, which are white gravestones set in rows, or even in some places suggesting fallen soldiers where they're bent over and broken. But behind we have a message of hope with a new dawn, and we can go into the light and move along with a bit more confidence. So I thought there was a good representation there of Saturnine and a bit of a stronger image than we've seen in the last two. But I went for this one in the end, which probably technically is the worst of the four photographs in here, but I think carries the strongest message in terms of the theme, with the starkness of the contrast again, with the fact that we've got this almost dreamlike being in the foreground, dominating the scene, dominating the smaller person in the background. We get to the smaller person, we can see that the eyes are just blank. And I think that's important as well in putting across the message that and expressing our fears and emotions. We've got this lovely dark vignette around it, creating the mood. If anything, I would like to have seen the other smaller statuette there slightly softer as well, to just play into that dreamlike situation of not everything being sharp and detailed. But I think this again is a strong image, and that's Trevor's work, so well done, Trevor. Okay, this one there's parts of this I like very much. I think the message here between the out of focus face and the animal head, the dragon head, is very strong, and the fact that we've got the person looking up at it, I think works very well. And that sort of wild-eyed, open mouth stare and pose of the head of the animal, I think, is very strong. I'm not so keen, I have to admit, on the sort of left-hand quarter of the image with the bright lights and stark contrast there. So although I've talked about stark contrast, I feel that in this image, it's taken away from the main message. And I want to just, I think, have all our attention concentrated on this relationship between the person and this animal, this dragon emerging out of the mist or the smoke and being larger than life. Really, it's much, much bigger than his head, and causing us to have some dark thoughts, causing us to be a bit fearful. To me, that's where the image really works very strongly. And this one as well. And again, I think in terms of just pure photography, this one could be criticized for the lack of any control of the highlights, for the deep shadows. But I think that works perfectly into the theme. I like that split. I like the way that we've got this line that sweeps us round, but the important thing is that the cat hooks us, and it's a black cat. We associate, in terms of saturnine, I think we can associate black cats with witches. We've seen kids' drawings of witches, black cats sitting on the end of witches' broomsticks, that sort of thing. But what I also like very much about this black cat is just that one eye that we can see. And that just makes that cat, for me, feel a little bit malevolent. It's just a one-eyed creature that's in a very bad mood, and it's something we need to stay away from. I spoke on some earlier pictures about seeing pleasant pictures that made me want to go there and not run away. Well, this is not a pleasant picture, and it does make me feel that I want to run away. I want to avoid that cat. So that, I think, provokes a strong reaction and makes it a strong image. This one, on the other hand, I think is really too literal. I think we can see what's happened here. We can probably make up different stories. It just suggests to me a typical British person on holiday in Spain after having too much to drink. But other people may come up with different stories, but I don't see it really as having any sense of mystery about it, about tapping really into any sense of fear. Even though we got dark, we got strong contrast. It's not, for me, coming up with the right sort of mood and feeling that the previous two photographs have had. But this one, again, is an image that I thought long and hard about. My first thought is, well, what on earth is it? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, that's really good, because, yeah, what is it? Is it something like from the War of the Worlds, a Martian monster that's landed and is finally succumbed to human diseases? Is it a Triffid that's coming out and taking over the world? So what's it doing? Is it some sort of creature that is the stuff of nightmares? Is it something. There's this area down at the bottom left center. This shape there, is it something like a young? Is this an animal of some sort or a being of some sort that carries its young around, much like kangaroo would do? So they've got all that going on and all that stark contrast in there that prevents us in some ways of seeing the detail and working out just exactly what it might be in reality. And that's really good, I think. We don't want to see the reality, I don't think. But what then, for me, is the extra bit that puts the icing on the cake for this one, that just makes the image, is the photographer in the background. What on earth is happening here? Because if this thing is so scary and so fearful, who's that? Who's that in the background? What are they doing there? And maybe that person again is supposed to represent ourselves, as we're all photographers and we've seen something that is worth recording, and that we're trying to do that in a way so we don't get noticed ourselves. And I just felt this, in the end, this was a very, very strong image. And that's great work, I think, by Angel. Okay, this one I think again is one of those that just for me is giving us too much information and not making us think about it. I can't see too much in there on what is the mural on the wall there, whether that's supposed to be the part of the image that prompts us to make it think about being gloomy, mysterious. I suppose you could say it's mysterious because we can't really see much detail in there, but I don't think it's the right sort of mysterious mood that we need for a saturnine image. But it's something that's dark and just not revealing its detail because of the exposure. This one, however, I think it goes in a completely different direction. I'm going to suggest that you crop out the right-hand side because we've got something sharpish that tells us that this is a window frame, and I think the rest of the image is suggestive of things. It's suggesting that, you know, we haven't got anything clear, that there might be this fuzziness to our thoughts and our dreams, that there's a figure in there, we don't know who it is, what's it doing, that might feed into our fears and our darker thoughts. So I think that part of the image is working well. We don't need that reality that's on the right-hand side. And this one, I think, works even better. So even though this is more split up into different portions because of the different frames in there, I felt that there's a harmony to it in terms of the colour and the lighting. And that although we've got this indistinct, what appears to be outside bit at the top, we've got this other bit which is probably just in reality just a reflection of what's inside, but it's another mysterious, and it's another indistinct, unreal almost part of the image. And I do feel that they fit together because of the light and because of the colors in there. And that this figure down at the bottom again is there's the repetition, a bit of a repetition, a bit of a shadow there, so we don't quite know what it is, but it's working again to suggest that we might here be in the middle of a bad dream, and this dream is all about our fears around whatever is happening in our life. So I thought that one was really strong image as well. But for me, I came for this one for the best because this is, by comparison, a fairly simple image. We can see what's happening, but by putting the building at this angle, by having this blur and this sense of motion, then I thought, well, it's such a big, strong structure is in the process of falling down. And it's crumbling, and this might be our world. We might feel that our world is a big, strong structure, but you know, it can be fragile, and our hopes and fears can be fragile as well. And I thought that was what represented this, that there might be a bit of light in the future, but that's also under threat from this collapse. So I felt that was fitting the theme, the best of these four. So that's good work by Miko. Very good. Okay, right. This one is Sense of Reality. It's a nice moody scene, I think, because of the atmosphere in there, the misty atmosphere. Quite pleasant. I couldn't help but think, though, that the tree, the shape of the tree, reminded me very much of Donald Trump's hairstyle in The Wind. And that in itself is a bit of a scary thought, but I thought that's the sort of thing perhaps that needs developing, and whether you could bring in then some sort of profile of a face to fit in with that, or some sort of creature, and start to make this tree the very scary object that is feeding into our fears and emotions, and producing a much more mysterious effect than the one we've got here. Now this one is, I think, in many ways mysterious, but it's mysterious for me in that I keep trying to work out what it is. And for the theme, I don't think I should be trying to work out what it is. I think I should be consumed by the message that you're putting through, the message about mystery, the message about expressing fears, emotions, tapping into darker thoughts, the sense of unease that I've spoken about many times. Here we've got this contrast between sharp, beautifully lovely textures that you can almost look so tactile, you can almost feel them if you put your hand over the picture, and other bits that are blurred and on the move. So I can get a sense there that, you know, this is something that's a bit like dreams and thoughts and fears that are fluid and move about and never stand still. But I'm not getting that sense of unease out of the image that I think comes out with the darkness, the mood, and the expression of fears and emotions. Now, I did almost go for this one as the best of the four as well, and what decided me against it in the end, I think, was that concrete post, which I don't like. I don't like that sort of right-hand third of the pictures, to be honest. I think the sky could be much darker and much more threatening to fit the mood, the saturnine mood. What I like is the house and the sort of touch, the surreal touches to it, the angle that it's at, as though it's in the process of going to fall down and crumble at some point in time. But the real bit I like is the picture of the landscape on the wall. And I don't know, probably some sort of poster, or might be something somebody's painted up there. But it looks so surreal and so out of place that it just keeps catching my eye all the time. And I think what we need then is to build the image and the mood around the property, and perhaps around that particular part, this gable end that we can see here, to suggest something that we could, if you wanted, you could take the post out, of course, in Photoshop, get rid of the wires. It's relatively easy these days with the advances in Photoshop. We could use the shadow road there as having something in there again that can create a sense of unease. So I think there's potential for development of this image along the lines of the theme. So in the end, I went for this one. And I must admit, when I first looked at this, I thought, that's horrible. And I really didn't like it at all. But the more I looked at it, the more I thought, well, yeah, but you're supposed to be making me feel uneasy. I've spoken about that a lot. You know, I've spoken, as I've said, about places that look attractive and make me want to go. The last thing I want to do is to be in this crowd with this group of people looking like this. I don't know what it is. They got all this clouds about, foam about, whatever it is. It's its top, its bottom. You've got all these people mixed in with it. We've got this lovely dynamic tension on the left-hand edge as this person's just about to disappear out. But the bit that clinched it for me in the end was the person on the right-hand third laughing at me. Why is she laughing at me? Is it because I'm scared of all these things? All these things do make me feel very uneasy. They make me fearful. And she's laughing at me. And I feel that she's laughing at me because she's part of this. And I'm not because of the colours and not because of that, but just when I remember watching the Walking Dead series, and it's almost like, well, you know, she's part of a world that I don't want to belong to, but she's thoroughly enjoying it. And she's laughing at me for either not wanting to belong to it or because whether I like it or not, I'm going to be drawn into it. So I thought this was really strong image that prompted and connected with lots of thoughts and emotions. And maybe all of that has said more about me than it has about the picture. I don't know, but that's from Marlene. Very strong image, I thought. Okay, right, we're down to the last couple of photographers now. And this one is another one that I sort of glanced at and walked on by and went back to, and I thought, well, I've got to try and see what the photographer saw. I've got to try and see what the message is in this one. And eventually what I did see, and I don't know if this is what the photographer saw, but I saw almost a distorted animal face in there. So in the top horizontal third, we've got these two little almost whirlpools that look like eyes, that could suggest eyes. And then below the right hand one, we've got, for me anyway, the shape of a face with a dark area that could be the nose of the animal, and below that the mouth. So I think there's that in there. I keep getting distracted by the lighter parts of the image on the bottom, on the bottom face of the photograph, and I think you could darken those down to match up with the rest of the surrounds to put the attention on that centre bit where maybe there's something there that is suggestive of something a bit fearful, a bit mysterious. This one again, it's like the earlier industrial image. I think on its own, yes, it can suggest that this is not a happy place to be, and it's not a happy part of the world, not an attractive part of the world, and it certainly doesn't make me want to go there, just the opposite. So I think it's working in that respect. Whether it's quite dark enough or moody enough, I think might be a matter for debate, but I think it's on its way. But I also feel that there are stronger images in this set. And again, here we've got high contrast. We've got this literal bit of the building having fallen down by the looks of it. And I think this might be a quite literal representation of fears and disquiet that literal representation of fears and disquiet rather than suggestive of mood and darkness and unease. But this one I felt just really hit the spot. I think this is an excellent image for the theme because you've got all that darkness, can't see into the shadows, we've got bright lights. We've got a story going on. We can't work out. There can be different stories here. Is the person in the middle photographing the person to the left who is photographing the couple at the end? They're all heading out of the picture space, which I think again gives us that dynamic tension. We've got strong lines that take us across that picture space as well, heading in the same direction as these people. Where are they? What are they doing? Are they actually covering their faces because they don't want to see things? Are the couple on the left-hand side walking out of the picture? Are they actually walking into the picture? So all these different things going on, which prompting lots of questions, lots of thoughts, tapping into different stories that can lead us down some dark thoughts. Very good, very strong from Joran. Nice one. Okay, the final set now, and I think there's some really strong images in here. They all make me think. When I first saw this one, I thought of a Christ-like figure, a crucifix type shape, because I saw arms being outstretched. I saw cross feet at the bottom, and I saw this crown of thorns around the head. And then I looked more, and I started to see long blonde hair, and I started to see a shoulder and an arm. And I thought, well, we've got yet another mysterious figure here. Who is it? Is it a woman? Is it a Christ-like figure? Why they're surrounded by all these spiky bits? So again, somebody in a dream sequence somewhere where we're seeing different things coming up with different stories. Maybe not quite as dark and gloomy as some of them, and I think maybe if the surroundings had been that bit dark and the person coming out, then it would have been just that little bit stronger. This one I felt was just a little bit more literal. I think we can see what it is, and you could say, well, all that out of focus wetness on the glass there is a representation of the future. I could see that on the right hand side, on the right hand third, there's a couple of dark spots, and in between them a bright area that looks like an elongated nose, so maybe that's an animal's head. So maybe there's things coming out of that, and we're suggestive of a scene or a future or a world where not everything's clear and transparent and is broken up in many respects. But I think the red cars at the bottom are a little bit too literal, and the brightness across the top I feel is a bit too bright and might benefit from a bit of darkening down. But I think there's areas of the photograph, like I was talking about around the face, that could be concentrated on to strengthen and get the theme across in a much stronger way. Now this one, I like this one very much. Love the idea behind it. Giant cat. The cat to me looks too friendly though, despite its size, and it's coming out of this almost sort of nuclear future. This very, very strange background where maybe the bomb's gone off or something, and maybe that's why the cat is the size it is, because something's happened, as they do in science fiction programs, to mutate the cat and make it bigger than trees. I just suggest, to add to that sense of mystery and unease, a bit of work on the cat's eyes to make them a bit more vivid and to make them glow a bit more, because I think then they can be the center of the attention and make them just a bit more scary, just to give us that stronger sense of unease than we've got in this image. But I felt this was the strongest one, because this is the stuff of nightmares. This is like the apocalyptic future or the apocalyptic world where we've got one brave person trying to fight off whatever it is with something that isn't really a weapon. They've got these gossamer wings, which are really not going to be much use to them because they can't fly away with those. That head and hair is, again, the stuff of nightmares, going all over the place in all directions. And I just felt it was very, very strong message, and one that captures the mood but also plays into the fears, the mystery, the darker thoughts. And that one is by Vivian, so well done, Vivian, for that one. So there we are, folks. That's the lot. A very strong set of images. As I said at the start, some very strong, some not so strong, and I think some people leading very happy, carefree lives where it's a bit more difficult for them to get in touch with the theme this month. But I've enjoyed seeing the images, and thanks very much for asking me to do the review of it.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. usual very in-depth interpretation from Rob.
Yeah.
Very in-depth and inventive.
Mhm.
But I like the fact that so many people have used that challenge to produce unusual images, yeah, really sort of inventive images, yeah. That the last one, Vivian's, and a few others. I like that. That works as a theme, yeah.
Mhm. Can you all hear that? From Rod? Rob?
Sorry.
Can you hear Rod?
Only just. Yes, I'm talking about Vivian's last image.
No, I was saying that it's the theme. It has produced some very inventive interpretations.
Yes. Yes.
They're not just photographs. They're stories. Yeah.
Yes.
That's very good. That's very encouraging.
Yeah. Yes, I quite agree, Rod. I think it's prompted certainly some people to explore the opportunities that are available within Photoshop, but
Yeah.
they've done it in a way that I think has worked tremendously well. But and it's almost as if they're starting to produce photographic art rather than a straight photograph, if that's an understandable way of describing it. But it's the ideas. What I was struck by was not just the ability to produce those photographs, but the thoughts and ideas that they've had behind them, which I think are very strong ideas. And not everybody's got the ability to carry out the ideas, but the important thing, I think, is to have a go, get feedback from your peers, listen to that feedback, and keep going. If that's the sort of thing that interests you and is what you want to do, then I'd encourage you all to do it.
Yeah, no, it's just that. It's just taking you out of the straight photography and interpretation, yeah, and into your own mind, into your interpretation of it, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's very creative work, I think.
Huh?
Very creative work.
Yeah. No, it was very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree. They weren't all great images, but to take you down that road, take you down that inventive road, you know, is very good.
Yes.
Yeah, I echo what Rod has just said, and I'm trying to organise somebody as an external speaker for one of our mid-months, who is quite adept in this area, to give us a presentation on how they actually go about creating these sorts of images.
Yeah.
No, that's good, Trevor.
I think it's a road that we could go down. Yeah, it's as well as the straightforward photography and classic photography. It's definitely a road we can go down and explore. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
The right theme as well. I mean, I like themes like this. They're more like an adjective, and you've got to create something for yourself. I like spooky. I like this because you can use your imagination. It's a bit different to sort of perspective, or it's a bit different to a technical theme, and we need a mixture of all of them. But it doesn't suit everybody. But I love it.
No, I mean, I'm just looking forward to when they're posted on the webpage, so I can really go into it.
Yes, what I will do is put up the best ones on Facebook, but I think there are some people who have got more than one image that's very strong that are worth a second look. So I'll work with Frank and we'll get them up on Facebook, and I'll get them to Frank to go on the website as well.
Yeah, no, that'd be interesting. Because it's the first time I've seen that. This, yeah, the lot of Photoshop work, and that's also very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else? It's okay. Thank you very much again, Rob.
Thank you.
Looking forward to see you here.
It was a challenge for me to get into the minds of the photographers as well, or try to anyway. So anyway, good to see you all, and hopefully one day I'll actually be able to walk into that room and meet you all in person.
Yeah.
See.
Forward to see you here.
Yes. All right. Okay, I wish you all the best.
Thank
Hope
you.
you feel better soon, Jean,
Thank you.
and see you again sometime.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.